No, the show title.
Control.
Control. Not just not mind control, but control, huh?
Yep. So,
That's
welcome
a
back.
topic and a half. Yes, welcome back.
This.
Hang on.
Go on.
I can do it now because I've got all these windows half open, you see, where I have to type everything in. You're back with David Mackey's Shiny Side Out on Revolution Radio, the #1 listener supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button and subscribe, and also jump into the archives to get everything for free. You can do that. Get yourself some great merchandise from the station, which is not free, but it helps go to support the station. And you can get that from the station's website. You can buy a t-shirt, a mug, or anything you like. And we're going to also thank you for listening very much to Revolution Radio, and especially Shiny Side Out. We're halfway through show number 689. Mecky.
980 and 600.
And apparently we're talking about control.
Control. Look, for the last few weeks, we've spoken about specifically mind control, right? And as insidious as that is, and all the ways in which we're being controlled from subliminal advertising, not so subliminal advertising, even directed energy weapons, manipulation via maybe our Wi-Fi router, who knows, and all manner in between. The question now has to be, why? I think the fact that we're being controlled cannot be denied by anyone. Now, the level of control can be argued. You know, are we all Manchurian candidates? Probably not. Are there some? I'm pretty sure there are. But we're all being controlled to some degree without us knowing it, right? And I'm just looking at something very innocuous, such as advertising, okay? Marketing, which controls our spending habits, etc., etc. So a whole bunch of stuff that happens to us, which we didn't ask for and which we're not consciously aware of. I think we can take that as read. I think that's a truth, okay? And it's all in the service of the almighty dollar buck, as Bluey would put it. But of course, the control itself is more insidious, and it's not all about making money, right? Certainly, mind control, as it was practiced by MK Ultra, by the Soviets, by China, by North Korea, by maybe every nation on the planet, where you are trying to break down the individual and rebuild them in your image. Now, the very first attempt to do that was in the military, where they take you from a normal human being. Here's a normal human being, which has an aversion to killing, unless there's something wrong with you, and turn you into a killing machine. So you have to break you down and build you up again, right? And then, of course, that is fraught with all kinds of difficulties. And the easier route to do this is to really do it directly to you, in your brain, in your mind. Get in there and just do that. I don't know if you've seen the Wolverine and Deadpool movie, whatever it was called. I think it was called Deadpool and Wolverine, right? That's it. Where there was a scene when they get to the other dimension, where they find the sister of Professor X, the twin sister who didn't really survive in many other universes, but she puts her fingers in Deadpool's head from behind, and the fingers are wriggling out through his forehead. And I thought that was a very nice picture of what mind control really is. Someone gets their fingers into your head and
I've
just pulls.
image, yeah.
Right? It's quite something. So the question then becomes, why is there this need for control? I mean, the simplistic answer would be, because the powerful people want to stay in power, and that's the easiest way to do that is if they control everything, etc., etc. Now, okay, but again, why? Why do they want to be in power? Why do they want to be in control? And why do we have to be controlled? I want to share a few things with you. Dave and I are going to do this, but I'm going to start with coercive control. It's been a talking point in Australia recently, where coercive control is not necessarily violent, right? But it's a form of control that you find in relationships. Now, when I finish reading the paragraph, I want you all to think about, in your own lives, right? what the government or government-like institutions or the hidden parasites or whoever, or the deep state, whatever, I don't really care, how that is similar to what they're doing to you. So bear with me. So what is coercive control? It's a pattern of abusive, controlling behavior that can turn violent. Another name for it is intimate terrorism. I do actually like that term. Coercive control is when someone, usually an intimate partner like a date or a current or former spouse, tries to dominate your life. They may intimidate you, keep you isolated, threaten you with violence, or terrorize you with actual violence. The controlling person might limit your freedom and independence by A. Keeping you away from family, friends, and other supportive people, or making you feel guilty when you spend time with loved ones. B. Putting financial, social, and emotional barriers in your way that make it hard to get out of the relationship. C. Making you fear for your safety or the safety of loved ones or other people you know. They might also, 1. Deprive you of sleep and other basic needs. 2. Stalk you and keep a close eye on you, where you go, who you see, and who you talk with. 3. Question you a lot. 4. Embarrass you. 5. Gaslight you or make you question your own beliefs. Coercive control can fill you with fear even if your partner isn't physically violent with you. And the terror and trauma could last after your relationship ends. Now, that's the context of a relationship between partners, spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever.
Are you reading from my diary?
There's a camera on every page, right? But that's really the point, Dave. So if you look at all of these points, tell me which of these the government or the controlling bodies, wherever you are, do not do to you.
Well, do not do. Oh, wow.
Name one.
None. I got nothing.
Exactly. So what we're experiencing as citizens, even in free liberal democracies as we tout to be, we experience most of the things I've just mentioned to you. Most of them. In authoritarian regimes, you experience them all. Okay? Deprive you of basic needs. Stalk you, monitor you, right? Cameras everywhere. Question you a lot. Embarrass you. Gaslight you. Make you question your own beliefs. Keep you away from family. We have been undergoing a concerted effort, in my opinion, for the last 50 years where we're destroying the core family unit. Okay? Right? And in fact, we celebrate people that are independent, alone, have no longer any connection to their families. We go to other nations. We try to do the same thing where family structures are just part of the culture and we try to destroy them. We're putting financial and social barriers in your way. And the thing is that you can't get out of this relationship. It's not hard. It's impossible to get out of this relationship that you have with the government or any other controlling body. You can't get out of it. You would have to get off the grid, which is extremely hard. And even then, make you fear for your safety. Yes. And especially if you're a dissident. If you're a dissident, right, or someone who doesn't agree with the government or whoever, you will be afraid for your safety and you will be afraid for the safety of your loved ones or the people that you know. All of these things, they're all coercive control. Now, we define this term to be applicable to relationships between spouses or partners. This is the relationship you have with the government and the other controlling bodies in your life. You're living in an abusive relationship with your government, with the parasites. That's a fact. Okay, Dave, now, why do you think we need to control everything?
Why do you think the government has to do it?
Or we can go to the next article.
I don't know, because I haven't got a copy of the show notes.
I sent it to you.
Via?
Chat.
I can't see it anywhere.
You're kidding.
No, we have some issues here. If you can send it through any medium, it doesn't have to be the one we're using to communicate on.
I am, and I do it again. Here we go. And there you go. Tell me.
Bear with us, people.
Because I upload a copy. Yeah, I'll replace it because I sent it to you before, so I'll replace this one. There you go, done. In the chat.
In this chat.
Check another chat. If you've got other chats open, just check all the chats.
Yeah, because the last message I see is, what is the show topic that I've put into this chat? And that's it.
How about...
Oh, now it's turned up.
Far out. Thank you, teams.
Yeah, thank you. Whoever you were that made this up. Yeah.
Need to control everything. This may be why. That's where we are.
Anyway. That's right. The desire for control may be rooted in fear of uncertainty. Sometimes it can be related to a mental health condition. Being in control of your life sounds like a positive thing. And in most cases it can be, but for some people, the need to control everything can become all-consuming. If you feel the need to control all things and events around you, you may consider yourself a perfectionist, holding yourself and others to very high standards. Perhaps you tend to have trouble coping when things don't go to plan or change unexpectedly. You may even find yourself mentally going over the same situations as you seek to regain sense of control. Like most aspects of mental health, controlling behaviors exist on a spectrum. Most people experience them to some degree, but a persistent need to control every situation can take a toll on your relationships and mental health. And as you work on managing that need for control, it can be helpful to know where the tendency comes from. Mackie.
And we'll take this in turn. Now, why do you have a need for control? And I want you to think of this as we go through this in the context of your relationship with government or what you like to call the elites, which I call parasites, or any other controlling body in your life, right? I want you to think of it in that context. Okay. A persistent desire or need for control may be linked to difficulty accepting uncertainty. By trying to exert control over every aspect of a situation, you may be trying to create a sense of security and predictability. This need to feel safe and in control can, in turn, result from one, traumatic events. A history of trauma can have a great impact on many aspects of your life. It could also result in a deep need for control. A traumatic event is loosely defined as any incident that causes significant physical, emotional, or psychological pain to a person. When you live with trauma, you may get stuck in cognitive distortions like catastrophizing and things like that. Catastrophizing is when you tend to assume the worst in any given scenario. You could also be hypervigilant, which can make uncertainty very unsettling. Hypervigilance is a state of increased alertness where you may continually scan your environment expecting danger. By trying to control everything, you could start unconsciously trying to protect yourself from experiencing trauma. Again, that's really important. I'll get back to this. This is a natural and adaptive response. And research from 2018 trusted source, that's the link here, suggests that a feeling of control over outcomes can mitigate the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Still, excessive control could overwhelm a person's resources and impact quality of life.
Number 2, childhood experiences. The environment you grew up in can affect how you see the world. For example, growing up in a family with unstable dynamics where it was difficult to predict what would happen next may lead to controlling behaviours as a coping mechanism. Living with guardians who had alcohol or substance use disorder can also affect your relationships and behaviours as an adult. Children in this environment often have to face unpredictable situations. As adults, they may feel an intense need to control everything. Growing up with emotionally unavailable caregivers could also result in a need to control your interactions with other people in an attempt to get reassurance and validation. For example, anxious attachment styles are related to both unpredictable primary caregivers and a tendency to be controlling in relationships.
3. Anxiety disorders and OCD, which is interesting. Again, the same source, research in 2020, trusted source, suggests that people who live with anxiety disorders often find uncertainty hard to tolerate. Uncertainty may mean there's more room for intense worry and rumination. People may self-soothe by trying to control as many outcomes as they can to reduce this worry. A need for control may manifest differently depending on the type of anxiety disorder you live with. For example, if you have a social anxiety disorder, you may feel the need to plan out all the details of social interactions. Last-minute changes to these plans may make you feel extremely upset. With generalized anxiety disorder, you may anticipate possible triggers, which could also result in controlling behaviors. People with obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, may also have a strong need to control everything in an attempt to reduce anxiety and fears. Folks with OCD can constantly face intrusive and irrational thoughts that lead them to engage in specific actions called compulsions in order to soothe the anxiety those thoughts cause. These compulsions often go hand in hand with a need for control.
Number 4, personality disorders. An excessive need for control can sometimes be a symptom of certain personality disorders. People with borderline personality disorders, BPD, for example, may feel intense fears of abandonment. This fear could lead you to want to control your interactions and romantic partners in an effort to stop them from leaving you. Some people living with narcissistic personality disorder may also engage in controlling behaviors like using manipulation tactics to direct situations in their favor. Number 5.
5. Learned behaviors. Sometimes feeling a need to control things can be unrelated to a condition. It's possible to have a tendency toward controlling behaviors if this is something you constantly witnessed and experienced when you were younger. For example, having a parent who micromanaged you or monitored everything you ate or did may lead you to repeat these patterns as an adult. Perhaps you find reassurance in repeating these behaviors, or maybe you assume this is how things need to be managed at home. You can also associate control in certain situations with caring for others. Now, it's really interesting if you look at the reasons for this. So what we can ascertain here at this point, at least, from psychology or the study of psychology, again, overlay it to the controlling bodies and the people in charge of it, because this is people. You have to understand that this is not some kind of abstract godlike entity that controls us, right? This is people making the rules, having all the cameras, monitoring us 24/7, 25/8 if they could. The question then becomes why, and the answer here is it seems that these individuals, right, are deeply insecure. They have a lot of fears and anxieties. Right, they might have been the kids that were bullied at school, but even if we go a step further, right, if you look at generational control, right, this is how they grew up. That's what they know. I know for a fact that in a lot of private schools and a lot of the elite colleges, the hazing rituals are quite horrendous, right? Which deliberately so in order to create these personality disorders, right? Because if you want to rule, you can't be a sane person, not sane in the sense that you and I would think of as sane. So you have to be damaged in order for the elite to be of use. And that damage goes as far, when it comes to mind control, it goes into actually compartmentalizing your mind into different personalities. So, multiple personality disorder, that's something that they try to create deliberately in some of the victims, right? So to segregate different personalities for different uses in the same person. They do the same thing to their children. Now that's generational, right? What if we take it one step further? And now we look at the parasites that Dave and I believe have been around for a long time. The quasi-immortals, if you will. and when I say a long time, I am talking tens of thousands of years and maybe longer. Maybe they suffered such a massive trauma. Maybe when the last civilization folded or was destroyed, or maybe the one before that, I don't know, right? But there was some event in the past that caused them into this personality disorder. Okay, that caused them to feel the need for control, they feel the need to be able to predict other people. So these whatever happened in the past may have been a surprise, for example, right? And we read about it in our religious texts, in our myths, and so forth. We read about things that may have happened. The Tower of Babel, the floods, language confusion, things like that, where the people tried to reach the heavens and were struck down and robbed of their telepathic abilities, in my opinion. But you see, it's these individuals, these parasites, that are extremely damaged. So should we feel sorry for themselves? Well, we could, but let's not go overboard here, because the trauma and suffering and hardships they have caused, the horror they have caused, is almost unimaginable. Which brings us to, in my opinion, the key personality that the parasites actually have, and that's the obsessive compulsive personality disorder, right? It's a cluster C personality disorder. Don't worry about that. It's a psychological term marked by a spectrum of obsessions with rules, lists, schedules, and order, among other things. Right? I mean, if you look at our society, the way it structures, there's very little actual freedom these days. And for a long time, there have been rules and structures and schedules. And it's in a pyramidal shape for us as well. Symptoms are usually present by the time a person reaches adulthood and are visible in a variety of situations. Okay, the cause of OCPD, which is the obsessive compulsive personality disorder, is thought to involve a combination of genetic and environmental factors, specifically problems with attachment. So I think we are genetically predisposed to this, yes, as a race, but I think environmental factors do push us over the edge, and I think that's what happened. Obsessive compulsive disorder is distinct from personality disorder is distinct from obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, and the relation between the two is contentious. Some studies have found high comorbidity rates between the two disorders, but others have shown little comorbidity. So obsessive compulsive disorder and obsessive compulsive personality disorder are not the same thing. Some say, and others say, oh yes, they're very much the same things. Not really important. Both disorders may share outside similarities, such as rigid and ritual-like behaviors, and that's critical. Look at our society. Rigid and ritual-like behaviors, not just in religion. Almost everything we do is rigid and ritual-like, certainly if it wants to survive over time. OCPD is highly comorbid with other personality disorders, autism spectrum, eating disorders, anxiety, mood disorders, and substance use disorders. People with OCPD are seldom conscious of their actions, while people with OCD tend to be aware of how their condition affects the way they act. So it might be this might be the key distinction here. One is consciously aware of how they are, and the other one not at all. The disorder is the most common personality disorder in the United States, and is diagnosed twice as often in males than in females. However, there's evidence to suggest the prevalence between men and women is equal. So we don't know that yet. But so this is where I think our parasites live in their mind. Dave?
I just want to do some satire for a second. So if I had an OCD, Mackie, it would be in even numbers. So if you relate that, it's a comedy. If you relate that to someone having to flick the switch to test whether it's on or off, if it was an odd number, you would always change the status of the thing you were touching. If it's an even number, you would return it back to where it was. You would never be able to turn the light off, or you'd never be able to turn the light on.
Oh, that's terrible.
See? That would be so debilitating. If you had to... So I know some people who weren't recording when they did an action, and then a minute or two later or 5 minutes later, they're questioning whether they did it, because they don't know whether they did it or not. And then they've got to go check it. That's completely acceptable. If you're going to go on holidays and you go, did you turn the iron off? Did you lock the back door? Did you close all the windows. They're safe things to do, safe things to check. You should always do those things.
Oh, yes.
But if you're halfway on holidays on a 6-hour drive so
Go
far,
back!
and you've got to turn around and go back, you'd have to reevaluate your position. You should have given a key to a trustworthy neighbour, and you could just ring them and say, "Can you just check for me? Would you mind awfully?" Not one with an OCD who's then trapped in your house until you return back from holidays. See how that's satire? That's satire, right? I know some people who suffered from OCD, and I'll talk to Meki offline about a situation that occurred. I don't want to share that on air. It's very funny. We were very cruel, but we were young, and I apologized to that individual profusely for the amount of drama that we caused with them. They don't talk to us anymore. I don't know why, but yeah. Anyway, someone who is so tightly wound is the best way to describe it. You know, what's his name on The Simpsons? I'm rehearsing. I'm researching a role. I'm going to play a tightly wound convenience store clerk.
Oh yes. It's a famous actor.
It is.
Oh, I can't think of his name. Oh, he's actually. I love him as an actor, to be honest.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Then Apu says, if you watch
That'll
the
come to me.
security footage, you can see me flying around like a hummingbird. That's very funny. I forgot his name too. I don't know why. Anyway, signs and symptoms. Obsessive compulsive disorder, OCPD, is marked by an excessive obsession with rules, lists, schedules, and order, a need for perfection that interferes with efficiency and the ability to complete tasks, a devotion to productivity that hinders interpersonal relationships and leisure time, rigidity and zealousness on matters of morality and ethics, an inability to delegate responsibilities of work to others, restricted functioning and interpersonal relationships, restricted expression of emotion and affect, and a need for control over one's environment and self. Can you see how my story related to every one of those articles? Every single one. Some of OCPD's symptoms are persistent and stable, while others are unstable. The obsession with perfectionism, reluctance to delegate tasks to others, and rigidity and stubbornness are stable symptoms. On the other hand, the symptoms that were most likely to change over time were the miserly spending style and the excessive devotion to productivity. This discrepancy in the stability of symptoms may lead to mixed results in terms of the course of the disorder, with some studies showing a remission rate of 58% after a 12-month period, whilst others suggest that the symptoms are stable and may worsen with age.
Attention to order and perfection. People with OCPD tend to be obsessed with controlling environments. To satisfy this need for control, they become preoccupied with trivial details, lists, procedures, rules, and schedules. This preoccupation with details and rules makes the person unable to delegate tasks and responsibilities to other people unless they submit to their exact way of completing tasks because they believe that there's only one correct way of doing something. Let me pause for a second.
I know people like this, absolutely.
But that's why we have schools.
That's
and
right.
That's why schools are structured in the way they are. So everybody does things exactly the same way, more or less.
And
okay?
that's why homeschooling is not outlawed, but as close to it as possible. It's
I know. Yeah, independent thought alarm. The Simpsons weren't joking.
Yes.
They stubbornly, right? They stubbornly insist that a task or job must be completed their way and only their way, and may micromanage people when they're assigned a group task. They're frustrated when other people suggest alternative methods. A person with this disorder may reject help even when they desperately need it, as they believe that only they can do something correctly. People with OPCD are obsessed with maintaining perfection. The perfectionism and the extremely high standards that they establish are to their detriment and may cause delays and failures to complete objectives and tasks. Mistakes are generally exaggerated. For example, a person may write an essay and, believing that it fell short of perfection, continues rewriting it, missing the deadline, or even failing to complete the task. Another symptom of our civilization right now. The subject may remain unaware that others become frustrated and annoyed by repeated delay and inconvenience so caused. Work relationships may then become a source of tension. So just put it in context. In our society, in our world, everything is going through committees and planning sessions and this and that. And there's so much bureaucracy that things don't actually get done, but they're all triple and quadruple checked. Okay, that's this. This is absolutely what this is. This is OCPD, which is instituted obviously from the top down. So whoever's in charge of the pyramid has instituted those rules and regulations. Dave?
The problem with control. Unveiling a hidden source of anxiety and stress. This was updated January 3rd, 2024, reviewed by Monica Vilhea, PhD. The key points. Control is an often hidden form of anxiety. The anxiety behaviors associated with control often are viewed as necessary and helpful. Releasing anxiety associated with control can help you feel more calm, relaxed, and more fully human. That's a very big call. Control, or rather seeking to have control, is a form of anxiety. It is rooted in the default and often unconscious belief or feeling that I am not going to be okay, or things will not be okay. When this is your default belief, perhaps because of life experiences in which things felt scarily out of control and led to loss, chaos, instability, or despair, you may have adopted one of these two coping mechanisms in an attempt to feel that you or things will be okay. First, you may attempt to control as much as your environment as possible with the unconscious thought that if you know what to expect, or if things happen the way you think they should, or you want them to, then you will be okay. This takes the form of having rigid expectations of how things should be done, believing there is a right way to do things while everything else in the wrong way, or is the wrong way. Over preparing or over researching in pursuit of the right choice or outcome, or struggling to relax if anything in your immediate environment is unattended to, such as dirty dishes in the sink or laundry that needs to be folded. Alternatively, you may anticipate everything that can go wrong and create a plan for what you will do should each outcome occur. The unconscious thought behind this is that if you have a plan ready, then you will be okay.
The problem. So what is the problem with these strategies? Well, they do not work. There will always be things outside of your control. You will never be able to fully control your external environment, no matter how hard you try. Moreover, none of us are fortune tellers. We cannot know the future, no matter how much we think and plan ahead. Things do go wrong and bad things happen. When they do, you will need to determine what to do based on the information available to you in that moment. These are details you cannot know in advance. In general, though, these things we plan for are not the things that go wrong, and the things that go wrong are not the things we plan for. More importantly, though, the problem with control is that it fully externalizes the conditions under which you can be okay. It bases your well-being on factors outside of you, the one place where you have no control. This is really, really important from a parasitic point of view. In other words, for all of your efforts to be in control, it is not control you're gaining, it is only stress and anxiety. That's why we see a repeating cycle of ever-tightening control in our society, because it doesn't solve the problem. Dave?
Mackie, before I read it,
Yes.
There is that. What's that saying that it suggests? And I'm going to I'm going to balls it up here, but all your war plans are put aside once the first bullet is shot. What's that?
Oh yes.
What's it called?
No, I'll try to think of the wording here. Yeah, no, all plans go out the window once the first bullets fly past your head. That's pretty much it. So there's another one. Everybody's going to plan until they get punched in the face.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah, it's same. That's right.
So, but yeah, that's essentially
it. So everything you just read out, for me, fit that example. It's people struggling to plan to the second, with so much rigidity that everything falls apart when it doesn't come to fruition because they'd failed to plan for some inevitable thing, some randomness that happens in the world. Yeah. So, all right. So the last point here that I have is the solution. So what are the alternatives to these well-meaning but ultimately unhelpful strategies? It is to shift your sense of well-being from factors outside of your control to your internal strengths and capabilities. It is to recognize that no matter what happens to you or around you, you are the reason you will be okay. You and all of your internal strengths, competencies, qualities, knowledge, skills, and resources are the reason you will cope with whatever happens. To do this, you must first shift your focus away from all that is not in your control to all that is. Do you know, Mackie, when I'm asked, why are you so calm? Doesn't matter what happens. And I use the old David Lee Roth phrase from, what is it, Jump, I think? You got to roll with the punches to get to what's real. So all the plans in the world will get thrown aside when it all falls apart. So when Mackie and I talk about prepping and we say, as long as you have a plan, it doesn't matter. Just have a plan so you can enact it straight away. The astronauts doing their rehearsals for their flights, they are subjected to every outcome and multiples at a time. Though they've got a plan and objective, they have to then deal with each of those until they can clear them all to get their work done. It doesn't mean that they were in the plan. They have a plan. It doesn't mean it becomes part of the plan as far as expecting all of these failures to happen. I know, Mackie, when I know that I'm going to catch a train somewhere, I don't plan it to the second to arrive on the second because I know that that's a failure to plan correctly because anything could go wrong between here and the station. Anything. I know that if I give myself a couple, 15 minutes or something, get there nice and early, that it doesn't matter what happens. I arrive content knowing that at least I gave myself that much leeway for things to go wrong. If you're planning, say, IT resource work and you have contingencies, those aren't planned as though they will happen. They're ifs. You have a backup plan, so you can roll back. It wasn't your plan. Your boss says, isn't it your plan to do it? Yes, it is, but only if it's done correctly and within the schedule. Those are all successful planning components. You can't plan for it to all go wrong. You just leave some leeway for it to happen. And I see, Mackie, I see this, and I know you're relating this to our overlords, soon to be AI overlords or robot overlords, and the control in which we face ourselves, we face every single day ourselves, especially with the recent things that have happened. As you know, we've got flooding going on here. You put all of the normal things aside and deal with the problem. So I see the outrageous future that seems to be planned for us. I see that it seems that we are going to be helpless towards it all. I can't see that we're going to end up having to make any personal decisions about anything in the future. Everything will be taken away. I can't imagine someone who will then require litigious planning about getting up and walking to the kitchen to make a cup of tea for themselves. Hopefully they don't trip over the carpet on their way. They'll have to restart the entire thing from scratch and do it again. You're not the director in your own life with that
That's
single
correct.
viewpoint of yourself. It's like working with children and animals, they say in the film business. You never do it because it's always going to go south, right?
You can't control those circumstances. And so, Dave, let me ask you this. Should we feel sorry for the parasites? Because clearly they have a problem, right?
Not at all.
Yeah.
I want to sympathize with their conditions because they certainly have control as the top skill that they have. I did one of those SWAT. What is it? SWAT.
SWOT analysis. Yeah.
Yeah. I did one of those the other day, and I was a leader. That's great. I'm normally right in the middle. If it's a circle and there's 4 sections, I normally end up bang on the middle. But recently, I suppose I'm taking more control over myself and my life, and having to make decisions. Whereas I was just a little bit more lax, a bit more control. I suppose if I'm in a work environment where I have to deal with a lot more people of varying types, maybe that's what forms me to be in the middle. But right now, I turn out to be a leader. Good, that's good. And a leader, not a boss. That's a big difference. Yes, exactly right. So I actually wrote. Go on. No. I'm not the person who wants to just tell someone else what to do. I want to be doing it, and I want people to come with me while I do it. I want my ideas to be the strength that lets them succeed.
That's a very rare thing these days. I've come across it. Let me explain. I actually wrote a paper on this and I published it on LinkedIn about management and such, right? And there's management, right? But the way I framed it is there's leadership, and then management management is leadership's ugly cousin. and in many ways, I believe that to be absolutely true, because management is about numbers, spreadsheets, and getting to an outcome. Really, that's management. You're managing a scenario, and you want a certain thing to happen in that scenario, right? That's what management is. Leadership is a very different thing. Leadership is about you being the beacon and guiding people along a path that you would like to go, right? And that you would like for them to follow. But leadership, it takes a lot of personal investment, a lot. And management does not. I can manage without any emotional engagement whatsoever. I've got a spreadsheet, I got this, that. I can manage it very, very easily. Not a problem at all. Not a problem. Whatever, right? And I have no further thought about the people that I'm meant to manage, because it doesn't matter. If I'm a leader, it is actually about the people. And that is, I guess, what a lot of people, here we go. Leadership and its ugly cousin, management, today are different animals than they used to be 20, 30, or 40 years ago. We've moved away from because the boss man said so to how can I make you successful and help you enjoy the work you're doing? It is a player-coach model that works on 2 levels. That's the first paragraph of my little spiel here. And it's used, but the journey wasn't taken by many people. In fact, I want to say it was taken by very few people into leadership. A leader leads from the front. A manager manages from the back, and that's the difference. That's the key difference that you find. A leader is always seen and heard, right? But a leader listens more than a leader speaks, and a manager is expects to be listened to and really doesn't want to hear too much from everybody else. Just listen to what I'm saying. These are my instructions. Off you go. Okay, that's where we I wrote this 9 years ago. Jeez.
Wow.
So yeah. But it's dead. The old approach is dead, and still we persist, right? We persist in it.
I recently saw an episode of MASH where what's his name? Colonel Potter. He goes on leave and puts Hawkeye in charge. Now Hawkeye isn't a leader. He's a very good surgeon. And everything was becoming, according to the script, everything was becoming a little unmanageable. He hated everybody. The whole thing was just all in chaos. He couldn't control anything. He didn't like the situation he was put in. No one did anything he said. There was all these problems. And then when Potter comes back, they're sharing a bottle of whiskey. And BJ is confessing his hatred for Hawkeye and all the things he did wrong. And Hawkeye says to Potter, "Why aren't you doing anything about this? Why aren't you saying anything?" And he goes, I'm here as the last step. I only step in when I'm needed." And he grabs his bottle and walks out and goes, "Well, that was a waste," right? Sharing it with these people because they can't see eye to eye. I thought that was a really good statement. He says, "I only step in when I'm needed."
That's the way it should be.
It is, totally. And it's funny, Meki, what I see and how it all connects. It's like a musician hearing a riff. I've got a musical family history going back, and I dabbled in music. I've got some up on Spotify if anyone's ever interested in looking at it, listening to it. And I hear quotes and I store them and they come out just like my Simpsons history. This isn't...
It's funny that way.
It is. It's very...
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. So, what is the government in this conversation as part of this solution?
Well, the government is obviously the agency of control. Now, be it the government themselves, or if someone uses the government to control or exert control, it is certainly a very powerful tool, because we've given... See, for us, the government has become an abstract term. We no longer think of the government as people, right? The government is just something... I don't know. Just it seems to exist in some ether, in some ether somehow, and it just does things. It's people. It's still people, and the problem is, of course, that these people are either themselves damaged or they're being used by people that are damaged. Right. That's where I think the government lives, and the government should be a very minimal part of your life. I don't care which government, local, state, federal, irrelevant, completely irrelevant. But it should be a minute part, excuse me, of your life.
None of them should be in your pocket.
No,
not at all.
No, and they should not want to control you. You see, it's funny, right? When it comes to leading people or being in a leadership position or anything like that, like you said, there's management, there's leadership. The most successful leaders in the world trust their people.
That's
right? You got to prove you can't be trusted.
DOA, yeah.
100%, right? So you can choose to do that, right? And your life becomes easier, but you also... Because I firmly believe if you treat people like adults, they will act like adults. That's my firm belief. I mean, that doesn't go for everybody, mind you, but I think it's a good point to start. Whereas what we're seeing here is a complete distrust.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the government again. The government doesn't trust its citizens, which is hilarious because the citizens put the people that we call the government in charge of the government, as it were, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the problem that we have, this, like with most things, it's our language, Dave. Once we have sufficiently abstracted a term, I'll give you a simple example. placebo effect,
Sure.
right? It's a phenomenal kind of thing if you think about it. It's like, wow, what is it? Don't know. But we've given it a name, now we can forget about it. It's not the only term like that. And the government is the same, right? Government is not some kind of abstracted thing. It's a very real collection of people, underpinned by rules, regulations, laws, etc., right? But they all, to paraphrase Monty Python, they all derive their mandate of power from the people. Okay? And that's the fundamental basis of our government, right? Or at least so we're led to believe.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually turned the other way around. And I was going to come back to it, like I said earlier, the freedom that we all experience. 100 years ago, 150 years ago even, I could have gone to the apothecary and I could have bought myself some heroin, some cocaine, some benzene for my car if I had one, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And nobody would have, looked at me sideways or even better than eyelids. Wouldn't happen.
Expression.
And you go, why? Well, because people were treated as adults. And the funny thing is this as well. There was as much strife, if not more strife, than today. And yet people traveled with weapons.
Yeah. Believe
it or not. They traveled with, well, pretty much anything they wanted, really. There was no real customs controls or X-ray screens or hijackings as such. Yeah, there were pirates and bandits and a whole bunch of things. I mean, criminality existed as much then, maybe more, as it does today, right? But over the years, over the decades, over the centuries even, we have been pushed into a childlike state where we can no longer take responsibility for our actions. We have been relieved of responsibility from our actions, which I find horrendous. If you do something, you are responsible for it, right? Mm-hmm. But it's gotten to the point where, like smoking, right? You choose to smoke away. Now, smoking in and of itself, while not, the best thing for you, never used to be the health hazard it is today, for the simple reason people smoked actual tobacco, for example. These days, they smoke a compound of chemicals that has been laced into the tobacco, or worse yet, they're vaping. So the only reason cigarettes became as toxic and bad for your health as they are now is because the cigarette companies wanted the cigarettes to burn faster. If you put a cigarette into an ashtray, right, or the olden days, it would go out. Just like a cigar does.
100%
a cigar
goes out. Yeah.
But these days, if you smoke a cigarette, right, and you put it into the ashtray, lit and half smoked or quarter smoked, whatever, it will smoke itself.
That's right.
Now that's great for the cigarette companies, because let's say you smoke a cigarette, then you just put an ashtray, forget about it. Oh, geez, only smoked half of that or a quarter of that. I better light another one, etc., etc. Sales go up. Right? If you take all the chemicals away.
On the big projection over the boardroom table, saying we estimate that 3/4 of all the cigarettes we've ever sold burnt themselves.
Yeah, easily.
Mm-hmm.
Easily. And of course, but again, cigars do not, because cigars are tobacco. Now, I'm not saying, tobacco is the healthiest thing for you, but it wasn't as toxic or bad for you as cigarettes are today. Just not. It just wasn't. And tobacco smoking we've practiced for hundreds, if not thousands of years, right? So, it's a cultural artifact. In the interest of profit, though, we made it something that is exceedingly bad for you. Similarly, for addictions or recreational drug use, etc., right? We've criminalized it so that only criminals can provide you with the drugs, and therefore, introduced huge profit margins. But look, there is the music.
It sure is. And this is the end of this week's Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mekki. Do like, share, comment, and subscribe. Please comment, please share. Inform more people of this. So we're going to catch you 7 a.m. Tuesday and Thursday mornings, Eastern, at Plato's Table. We'll catch you back here again next week for Shiny Side Out.